All right, here's the last few sections of Penelope Ulixi, and let's just jump right into it at line 97. Tres sumus in belles numero, sine viribus uxor laertes quesenex telemachusque puer. So, just normal, tres sumus, tres here, in belles. Without a noun, of course, an adjective is, used as a noun, so you use people, in belles, people. Numero here in the ablative, I don't know, ablative of manner might be the best way to look at it, but it just goes with tres. Tres numero is the same as just tres. And then Ovid has Penelope name the three. Sine viribus uxor, laertes quesenex, telemachusque puer. There's your tres. Good pun here with viribus. We're actually going to see this later on as well. Vis, of course, is this beautiful Latin word that means force, strength, power, violence, something like that. And it's often in the plural, almost always used in the plural. But boy, does it bear a striking resemblance to the word vir in its plural forms. And so not only do we have a sine viribus uxor, we're also getting this image of sine vir uxor, which is, also Penelope's whole thing. Laertes and Telemachus. Ille, here we're talking about Telemachus. Ille per insidias paina est ademptus mihi nuper. The only thing to really bring up here is mihi is dative, of course, but often in poetry you'll see the dative used for the ablative, and so this is, est ademptus, he was taken, mihi, from me. That's not by me, but from me. That's what we're going for here. It's like an ablative of separation, but in poetry it's very common, in fact. Not just possible, but common to use the dative for the ablative. So paine ademptus est mihi. And then of course is Telemachus. Dum parat invitis omnibus ire pilon. So dum parat, and that's of course Telemachus is the one who is parat in. Invitis omnibus, a good ablative absolute with an adjective. Not really a participle, but just an adjective, and that's totally fine. Invitis omnibus, omnibus here being used as the noun. And Telemachus is parating ire pilon, and you can see the last video. Pilon is Nestor's kingdom. D precor, so D, sort of your irregular forms of the word deus, God. This is a nominative plural. D precor. Precor, just an aside, it's, if you're familiar with the subjunctive of wish, or what's sometimes called the optative subjunctive, much to the chagrin of everyone who knows Greek, precor is kind of like utanam. We're setting up a wish. So D precor, hoc iubeant. If only, you could say precor, literally means I pray. If only the gods, hoc iubeant. Hoc, then, meaning ut eiuntibus ordine fatis ille meos oculos comprimat ille tuas. This whole thing is what hoc is pointing towards. If only they would command this, that, blah, 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 blah. Eiuntibus ordine fatis, again, an ablative absolute with ordine. Ordine here is sort of manner, in an orderly fashion, might be the best translation there. Ille, again, Telemachus, ille meos oculos comprimat. To compro oculos, to close someone's eyes, means to, so to bury the dead. Ille tuos, so not only ought he do it to meos oculos, but he, hopefully, I pray that the gods command this, he can do it for your oculos as well. Haec, sorry, I'm coughing so much today. Haec faciunt custos quibovum longaevaque nutrix, tertius in mundae cura fidelis harai. Haec, It's feminine. It's going back to the so precor is a verb, obviously. The noun that comes from it is prex. Prex is feminine. So hac, preke, all in the ablative there. That's what we're referring to in this prayer, in this plea to the gods. Faciunt, here being used almost the way like agunt would. They do. They act in conformity with this prayer. The kustos, boum. Here's another irregular noun, boum. This is our genitive plural from bos, bois. So the kustos boum, the longaiwa nutrix, and third of all, the cura of the harai, the cura fidelis of the inmundai harai. This is a strange use of the word cura. Cura often just means a care or concern. And we saw it earlier, Penelope would talk about, when such and such a person died, he became the new cause of our cura, of our concern, of our worry, and stuff like that. Just a few times in poetry, we see it used in this way to refer to the person who does the caring, or might say the caretaker. So here it's not, we have a kustos, a nutrix, a kustos, which is a guardian, a nutrix, a nurse, and a cura, a concern. The cura here means the caretaker, the person who would have the concern. It's very rare usage. I had to look it up myself because I just could not figure out why this was nominative. The third I totally understood. But now, because of course the caretaker is masculine, he, him, actual self-person, his natural gender is masculine, tertius can modify cura. Tertius is masculine to match the natural gender of the person, although cura is generally a feminine word. Here it's being used as a masculine to modify or to point towards this masculine character. You can think of it, it's kind of like Agricola and Nauta and Poeta. They are, they look feminine, their first declension, but because they refer to a human with a natural masculine gender, or at least they almost always do in classical Latin, you can use you do use masculine adjectives with them. It's kind of like that. Cura here you can think of as cura in the masculine means a caretaker. It's very rare. There's lots of ways to think about this sentence. What's important is that you know that cura refers to the person doing the caring. And then everything else sort of falls in. It's nice to note the inmundai harai encompasses the cura fidelis. This may or may not be a good example of encompassment, where Ovid will place something in between the two parts of another sort of noun phrase. Sometimes it seems very intentional. Sometimes it seems very meh. This is one time where I think it might be worth noting, just because if the cura is in the inmundai harai, logically, if you're thinking spatially, if he's there, where is he not? Well, he's not at the feast of the suitors. He's not at this illicit feast. He's over here in the harai. And so it's possible that Ovid is just, really playing up how fidelis this cura is, but maybe he's not. Maybe it just falls that way. It's very easy to overthink things in classics. We do it all the time. But it's also, even if Ovid did not intend that reading, if it adds to the poem, it adds to the poem. And it just, maybe it's not Ovid's conscious cleverness, but I certainly wouldn't want to take it from Ovid. We weren't there to ask him. We weren't there to say, oh, I like how you did this in line 104, for him to go, oh, I didn't even notice. He's not here to tell us he didn't notice. Let's assume he's clever. It's always good when you're looking back at sort of the great authors. If there's a clever way to read something and a less clever way to read something, or to say if there's a smart way and a dumb way to read it, assume they meant the smart way. It's not a good habit to get into, to assume that you're smarter than a great one of the great authors until you can prove it. But we walk in, walk in trusting and see what happens. All right, moving on to the last section. We're starting line 105 here, and there's only 116 lines in the whole poem. So here's the home stretch. So remember, we just talked about, one last thing I want to point out up here. Tres, we have an uxor, Laertes, and Telemachus. We also have a Custos, a Nutrix, and a Cura. That's just good composition. I gotta hand that one to Ovid. That's good composition. He definitely meant that. There's no way that was an accident. Said, turn it around here. So we just talked about how great things are up there. Oh look, everything. Well, Telemachus was almost hurt, but he didn't get hurt. He's fine. Now we're gonna switch. Said, neque laertes. Nice to note here. Neque is gonna go with neck. You cannot see those because I made them. Neque and neck. Not a short sentence, but it's okay. You'll see how it fits together. It's actually fairly nice. So neque laertes ut qui sit inutilis armis hostibus in mediis regna tenere potest. This ut qui is what I'm going to talk about here in a second. For now, think purpose clause. Let's look at the rest of the sentence, but we'll come back to this purpose clause here. I'm going to mark it green. We'll come back to that. Neque laertes hostibus in mediis regna tenere potest. So laertes neque potest tenere regna hostibus in mediis. It's in prose you would expect in mediis hostibus. It's very normal to throw the, it's actually not even that weird in prose to put the preposition in between the noun and the adjective. You would have mediis in hostibus. You'd put the adjective first. But in any case, hostibus in mediis. Mediis, it's a good word. You probably know this about mediis, but maybe it's worth repeating. It's not in the middle enemies, as in, assume there's a bunch of enemies out there and he's focusing on this central group. It's not in the central enemies, it's in the middle of the enemies, in the midst of the enemies. That's how that adjective works in Latin. So, another thing to note. So, he's not able to do blah, blah, blah. With the result that sit is qui sit inutilis armis. With the result that he is the kind of person who A relative clause with the subjunctive is called a characteristic clause, and it's not he is the one who, it's he is someone who, he is the kind of person who, it's giving you a characteristic of him. So because of this, the result is that he is qui sit inutilis armis, and then armis here is dative of, probably respect would be the best way to look at it, dative of reference maybe if you want. In any case, it's limiting the scope of inutilis. It's telling you he's not just inutilis in all things, he's inutilis with reference to armis. So, Laertes, So, on the one hand, neither is Laertes blah blah blah. I'm going to skip this. Again, we will come right back to it. So neither is Laertes able to blah blah blah, nor mihi sunt, dative of possession, nor to me are there vires. Again, the same word as viribus, that force, violence, power, but, again, we're getting the same pun because it's paired with Penelope again, which is good. Nor do I have powers, or nor to me are there powers, or the power, pellere, inimicos tectis. Power, pellere. Really, its apposition probably is the best way to describe it, but the power to do something. Vires pellere inimicos, tectis. Tectis, ablative of separation. You pellerate people out of an ablative. Worth noting, possibly, hostibus, inimicos. I thought about this as I was prepping this. Technically, those words are not always used as synonyms by Latin authors. A hostis is a public enemy, like an invading army, an enemy of the state, things like that. Where an inimicus is like a personal enemy, someone that you have a personal quarrel with. I don't know if Ovid is using them in that way on purpose here. I don't often like to say things like, well, for meter, he has used a synonym. And, one fits the meter here, one fits the meter there. I don't like that as much. I usually assume they're cleverer than that. Ovid could have used hostibus twice. He could have figured it out. And so I wonder if there's a thing with Laertes. Are these enemies sort of public enemies, sort of state enemies, whereas to Penelope, they're like personal enemies? I think it adds to the poem. I'm willing to read it that way. I don't think you have to read it that way, or at least if someone came up to me and said, that theory is bogus, I would be like, okay, we can both walk away from this without too hard of feelings. I think it adds. I think it adds to the poem. I think it's good to note. To Laertes, these suitors are hostes, but to Penelope, they're inimici. I think it's worth noting. So neither can Laertes do this, nor can Penelope. We have a third person who's in this formula. What can Telemachus do? Well, let's find out. Telemaco veniet, vivat modo, fortior aetas. Here's a sentence. Aetas is the subject. Aetas veniet in the future. So an aetas will veniet fortior Telemaco. There's a couple ways to read this. In the notes I gave my students, I told them read Telemachus as an ablative. We'll see what happens. I think you can read it as a dative as well. But aetas veniet fortior. An age will come, an age that is stronger. And I told my students an age will come stronger than Telemachus. I think that's possible. Both are going to mean the same thing. What I'm positing that means is that Telemachus right now is weak, but one day he will be stronger. There will be an age that is stronger than the current Telemachus. Man, not a normal way to say that, but I think it's doable. I think Telemachus could also be dative. If you wanted to read it as dative, a stronger age will come to Telemachus, or sort of on his behalf. I think both are totally possible. I don't actually know which one I like better, but I think you could read them both ways. It ends up meaning the same thing. One day Telemachus will be stronger. Vivat modo. This is a clause of proviso. Provided he live. So, if he doesn't die, then he'll get better. Which is of course obvious. Considering the circumstances. But anyway, that's what that sentence means. One day Telemachus will get better, provided he doesn't die. Whether you're reading this as an ablative of degree or a dative of, I don't know, benefit or something like that. Either way, I think you're okay with it. Nunc, now, erat tuenda. I don't like this construction here, but it is what's going on. Tuenda is a future passive participle, and erat is a past form. It's, specifically imperfect. Well, the past plus the future apparently means nunc. And I'm willing to hand that to Ovid, while I secretly dislike it a lot. Anyway, now he must be cared for. And the he, of course, it's that age. Now that age must be cared for. Auxiliis patris. Again, I don't love that construction. This whole sentence here, this gets chalked up in the top 10 most, well, there's not a lot more couplets than that. This might even be in the top 5 most confusing couplets in this entire poem. Hardest things to read in Ovid's Penelope Ulixi. In any case, Laertes can't do this. Telemachus is a little tiny baby. He's not really a baby, he's 20. And I can't do blah, blah, blah. That's what these sentences together mean. We're cheering for you. We're also a wee bit useless. That's what you get in this section. And because of all of that, to Citius Venias. Venias, you can use the subjunctive to make a demand, a plea. It's part of probably the which one. Oh, that you would. Here I just read as a command. Come. You need to come, Citius. If you know your Olympics, Citius, Altius, Fortius, Citius, faster. And it's to portus et arra tuis. Portus et arra, nominative here. They're renaming to. She's sort of giving him some titles. You, the portus and the arra tuis. And tuis, again, I think dative of possession works best here. That sort of second person possessive adjective, your own, your family. It often means your family. So you need to show up sooner. Oh, you who are the portus and the arra of your family. Est tibi, another dative of possession. There is to you, or you have, sitque precor, and oh that you would have, I pray, natus. So, est tibi natus, you have a son. I pray that you may still have a son. Again, it's another Wiwat modo. You have a boy. Hopefully he's alive when you get here. You have a boy, qui molibus annis, ablative of time when, in patrias artes erudiendus erat. That's going to move that, and I don't want that to move. Erudiendus erat. Here, I think you can read it again as that sort of present-ish if you'd like. I don't think you have to. I think this one you can also do just as a past was needing to be. In patrias artes. Artes, of course, here in Latin, it doesn't mean like painting and stuff. Artes and ars is any skill. So you have ars and natura. Natura is, good things that just sort of happen. Ars or artes are good things that are brought up by like human means. So, and of course, the patrias artes, his father's skills, include things like war and archery and lying and being king and being handsome and being Greek and destroying all those who oppose him. Those are sort of Odysseus's artes. And then here we get to the very end. Respicula erten. Respice, have concern for. Respicula erten, ut tu sua lumina condas. So that, I don't know if I read this better as a result or probably a purpose. Respicula erten, in order that tu sua lumina condas. Lumina condas, it means the same thing as we saw above with oculos con primat. It means the same thing. It means to bury the dead. Literally to shut the lamps, I think. If you wanted to do it literally, to shut the lamps, to cover the lamps, something like that. Extremum fati susnati lidium. Yeah, the purpose. So, in order that you would be able to shut his lamps, he sustinet ille. He Laertes. Sustinet diem extremum fati. I don't know if there's not a lot to talk about that. That part's pretty straightforward. Certego, quae furante discedente puella, protenas ut venias facta videbornus. So certainly I, who fueram te discedente, puella, te discedente, ablative absolute, while you were leaving. Fueram puella. Protinus ut venias. Protinus ut here meaning something along the lines of like as soon as, or I mean when, if you want to really, sort of generalize it, but as soon as venias, as soon as you show up one day. Facta videborannus. Video in the passive means to seem, and so videbor, future, I will seem facta annus. Annus, not to be confused with anus. Anus is a ring. Anus is an old woman. They're different words. It's worth keeping those two straight. And that's the end. One last plea about Telemachus Thanatos, one last plea about Laertes, and one last plea about Penelope. And that's it. That's the whole poem. There's nothing else. Go home. It's over. So hopefully that was good and it helped you and you're able to read Penelope Ulixi in Latin start to finish. This might be my favorite poem in Latin. It's certainly in my top 5, if not my top 1, but it's very good. I won't keep this video dragging out any longer than it has to, so keep reading, keep doing well, and we'll see you around.